Okay, today I'm going to grind some corn for cornmeal. Normally I use my Country Living grain mill to grind wheat, and wheat kernels or wheat berries are a lot smaller in size than corn kernels or beans. So one of the things that you want to do to make life easier is you want to use a corn and bean auger, which is this piece right here, when grinding corn, and you can see how wide the channels are. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch out the normal auger and we're going to install the corn and bean auger. And I've got the parts here disassembled. This is the grinding plate. We're going to need 2 washers. We're going to need the corn and bean auger itself. We're going to need a small spring, and then we have 2 keys that help hold things in place. So let's take a look and see how this works. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to rotate the grinder until the shaft shows the slot for the keys to be on the top. We're going to take one of the small keys and we're going to put it in the shaft, and we're simply going to push that all the way to the back. Next, we're going to take the corn and bean auger itself, and one side has a slot cut in it right there to accept the key. The other end is hollow and is going to accept the spring. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert this onto the shaft, and we're going to put the slot over the key that we just inserted, like that. Next, we're going to take the spring and insert it in the hollow portion of the auger. We're then going to take the other grinding plate, and if you'll notice, once again, that has a slot to accept the key. We're going to take our second and final key and insert it right here outside the spring. The grinding plate goes over the top. We have 2 washers to give it some spacing there, and then we're going to screw it on and tighten it all up. You can see the spring is what provides the resistance and allows us to vary the grind from coarse to fine. And the keys that fit in the shaft are what keep everything spinning instead of sliding around the shaft. Okay, let's take a look at some corn. We're going to open a new bucket today. Yellow corn, pack 2009. So we shall see what this looks like. Let me get a better shot here. There we go. You can still see that's got a nice good vacuum on it. Let me get a knife and we'll open it up. As good as the day I packed it 5 years ago. And there is the oxygen absorber. Did its job. Perfectly good food. Now if you'll notice, there are 2 different types of corn in here. I have regular yellow corn, and then I have a smaller kernel corn, and that is actually popcorn. And what I found is I really like making cornbread with popcorn, but it's a little bit harder to grind than the regular yellow corn. So in this bucket I mix the 2 varieties together, and that's what I'm going to grind today for cornbread. One other interesting thing is, as soon as I pulled this oxygen absorber out, I can feel this thing getting hot. Now, that means this is still reacting. This is still absorbing oxygen from the atmosphere. And that tells me that when this thing pulled a vacuum on this bag and it completely sucked the oxygen out, it was nowhere near depleted. This thing still has plenty of life left in it. This is actually getting quite warm, just like one of those boot warmers or toe warmers. It's basically a very similar chemical reaction here. So I thought I'd pass that along. These were good oxygen absorbers. They did the job, they've lasted, and they still have plenty of life left in them. Okay, we're going to make some cornbread to go with our venison stew for tonight. And the first thing we got is our cornmeal that we milled earlier. Got a little bit of wheat flour that we ground ourselves. Use some sea salt, some baking powder, some baking soda, and we got a buttermilk and egg mixture right here. Now, a couple of things you want to keep in mind for southern cornbread is, number one, it's not cake. There's no sugar in it, and it's not half flour and half cornmeal. Basically, I'm using about 1.5 cups of cornmeal and about 3 tablespoons of flour. Got 2 cups of buttermilk, 1 egg, teaspoon of baking powder, teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. And that's pretty much it. Next thing we want to do is make sure that you use cast iron. You don't want to use glass, you don't want to use anything else. Make sure you use cast iron. Cast iron gets preheated in a 450-degree oven and coated with grease. We want the skillets good and hot when we pour our dough or our batter in it. Okay, now I've got my cast iron skillet out, and you can see it was just starting to smoke, and that is coconut oil. I like to use coconut oil. It has a high smoke point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our batter in the skillet, and you can hear that sizzling. That's what we want. And here's our second one here, a little bit smaller skillet. There we go. We're going to put these in a 450-degree oven for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And that is just about perfect. Look at that. Alright, so let's go ahead and see if this will flip out here. There we go. Look at there. Perfect. And the second one. That's what it's all about. We've got our cornbread, our cast iron skillets, well seasoned, and let me tell you, this stuff smells great here. This is really, really going to top off a nice bowl of venison stew. And this corn I packed, if you'll remember, in 2009. And it's just as fresh today as the day I packed it. Long-term food storage is a good form of insurance. You have cookware that'll last forever, food that's got a 30-year shelf life, and combine that with trapping your own meat and butchering your own meat, and you really can provide for your family very healthy, very nutritious, great tasting food, even in a grid down situation. And these are skills that are perishable. These are skills that people need to learn, and they need to practice it and make it part of their daily lives. You're not only going to save money, but you're going to eat better and be more secure and less dependent upon the system. So here we go, a nice simple meal. This is a venison stew, and that's venison from last year. It's got some potatoes in it, some onions, some of the long beans from my garden, and some cornbread. Just a simple meal, but healthy, nutritious, satisfying, and largely done by my own hand.